Yo, what's good, everybody? I appreciate y'all tuning in a little bit later, almost damn near an hour later than usual. But your boy had some stuff he had to take care of. But we're here. We're gonna get this live stream, man. It's trying not to be too long. As always, I'm Marcus, and here we do attorney reactions to current events, trending news, and other topics that y'all hit me on or that may just be interesting. Stay tuned. Check out the video. If you hear something you like, definitely do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you for everybody for joining in. Shout out to the first comment of the day. I don't even got all my stuff together. I just jumped in here and jumped on. All right, round of applause for the first comment of the day, Maddie. I appreciate you. Now, yeah, we're late, so I'm a little bit sleepy, but we're gonna go ahead and jump in. This is going to be an interesting live stream today. What she called herself doing. We're gonna talk about a few things. We got three topics. The very first topic, though, we kind of got to revisit an old story. Let's lay the foundation. It's like court. In court, before you can testify to certain things or introduce evidence, you have to lay the foundation for the evidence. So let's lay the foundation for this story. I don't know if you all remember in late 2024, but especially after the election, 2024, 2025, we saw Tiffany Henyard kind of go a little pro MAGA. She started leaning a little to the right, to the right. She started leaning a little to the right, to the right. Hey, what's going on, Bob? I appreciate you tuning in. Rita, salute. Thank you, everyone. But Tiffany Henyard started leaning a little to the right. She was kind of just, let's just keep it a buck. She was on Donald Trump jock. She was glazing a little bit. She was glazing a little bit on President Trump after his election victory that was not as close as everybody suspected that it would be. And so she started making comments like, hey, I'm bounced back like Donald Trump. Shout out to Donald Trump. Reached out to him. She said she hit him up on IG. And everybody wanted to know, like, well, wait, why is she like, I mean, okay, yeah, we get it. President Trump, he won, he's back. We get that. But why is she glazing so hard? Why is she all on President Trump's job? Now, a lot of you like me, I well, what can I say? One thing about President Trump is he's transactional. And I think that dealing with someone who is transactional is not necessarily a bad thing because there is always a deal to be made. So at least you know that. If a person's not transactional, they may not be willing to hear anything out at all. But we've seen this. If we actually look at I believe it's the Secretary of Labor pick, but his pick for the Secretary of Labor is like it pretty much had Republicans up in arms. They were like, "Hey, why did you pick this person? We don't want them." But he's transactional. Hey, the head of the Teamster Union did something for him. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, type of thing. So when Tiffany Henyard was leaning to the right and she was going full blown, she was going full blown MAGA and kind of glazing Donald Trump. Everyone suspected that, like, okay, I get it. I get what she's doing. If I had a federal indictment, I'd be Trump's best friend too because shout out Donna A. Pardon me. That's what I was thinking. I was like, hey, nothing is wrong with having Kwame Kilpatrick got a pardon. A lot of people got Harry O got a pardon. A lot of people got a pardon who you can agree or disagree, but some people don't think they might have deserved pardons. But again, that's one benefit of dealing with a transactional president. So Tiffany Henyard leaned into Donald Trump. But we saw someone lean into Donald Trump before, who is a mayor of a blue city. Who is this? This is New York Mayor Eric Adams. So we gotta merge these two stories together. We did a story where we went through the indictment of Eric Adams because he just loved to travel and try to lean on allegedly New York City employees to get a building built, the Turkish consulate, I believe, built in New York without having the requisite approvals that were needed by the fire and safety department. And in exchange for that, he got a lot of luxury trips and dope flights staying at hotels. According to the indictment, there were some efforts to cover it up. Now, we looked at that case. I think the facts were very heavy. I think that if that were to go to trial, he would probably lose. Even his attorney, we talked about the mistakes his attorney made. His attorney analogized and said that Eric Adams' case was like Brian Benjamin's case, and Brian Benjamin's case was dismissed, but now it's reinstated, and he's going to be facing federal bribery charges. But I knew something was going on with Eric Adams. I'm gonna pin it together for y'all. I knew something was going on with Eric Adams when during the Democratic National Convention, I didn't see him. I was like, that's odd. It's the DNC. Why isn't the mayor of New York there? That's kind of odd. But Eric Adams early on kind of opposed the Democratic Party when he talked about how terrible the migrant crisis was in New York. New York was getting a flux of migrants coming in. They were getting shipped from Texas and Florida and all these places. They were using up billions of dollars in resources. Eric Adams was the probably lone Democrat who was standing up saying, yo, Biden, what the hell is going on? We need to do something here. This is essentially paralyzing my city, causing a lot of grief. What happens? Eric Adams questions the Biden presidency, the Biden staff on their immigration policy, not doing anything about the migrants. Lo and behold, bribery charges come up and he's indicted on federal bribery charges. Now, we're not saying there's a witch hunt. I'm just telling y'all the order with which it happened. Then they asked President Donald Trump about a pardon for Eric Adams. And he said, specifically, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but he said, it looks like he was targeted. As soon as he started speaking out about the migrant thing, these charges came out of nowhere. But even though Eric Adams didn't get a pardon, he has a favorable treatment. He was able to get his indictment dismissed. Now, I'm not saying that Trump did this strategically, but those charges are still hanging over his head. And I mean, if I did somebody a favor and I were being petty, it's always good to hold a little leverage over their head just in case I gotta nudge them in the direction that I want them to go. So let's take a look and see what happened with Eric Adams' charges, and we can analogize and assume that, or ask ourselves, is this the treatment that Tiffany Henyard is going to get when a new U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Illinois is sworn in? Let's go ahead, jump in, take a look at this video, then we're going to circle back. Let's get it.
Moments ago, the DOJ ordering the acting U.S. attorney of the Southern District of New York to dismiss.
FYI, Damian Williams, the bald head black brother with the glasses who indicted Diddy and everybody, he's out. He was out soon as, I think he resigned actually prior to Trump being elected. So now they have a new acting attorney general.
Moments ago, the DOJ ordering the acting U.S. attorney of the Southern District of New York to dismiss all charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. For more on this developing story, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delane joins us tonight. Ken, we've been covering this story a lot here on Top Story. What more do we know about what happened today? I know this story just broke moments ago.
Yeah, it really just did break, Tom. A Justice Department official confirming to me that the acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bove, who, as you recall, was once Donald Trump's defense lawyer, has ordered the Southern District of New York, the acting U.S. attorney there, to dismiss all charges against the New York Mayor, Eric Adams.
Hey, when you got power and somebody in a powerful position rock with you, it's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying where this order came from, but all of the charges against Eric Adams have been dismissed, even though there clearly was a factual basis to support the charges.
And I got a sense from this official of what the Justice Department's reasoning was behind this decision, and it's multifold. They are saying that they believe this case was an example of weaponization, meaning that it was unfairly brought for political motive. And they've accused the former U.S. attorney, Damian Williams, of using this case for his own political gain. They also say that because of this indictment, the New York mayor had lost his security clearance, and that made it more difficult for him to cooperate with law enforcement operations in the city, including immigration enforcement, which is a high priority for the Trump administration. And they say that they assessed that the Adams defense was not given enough time before the imminent trial to deal with all the massive amounts of evidence in the case. So they're ordering this dismissal. Now, the case has not yet been dismissed. That would have to be done through a motion filed by the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, and a judge would have a chance to review that. And one of the interesting questions is going to be, will those prosecutors carry out this order? Will any of them resign rather than do that? I mean, they no doubt that they believe strongly in this case. There's a lot of evidence. This is a massive bribery and corruption case, not brought lately against a very prominent public figure. But this is also an example of how the Trump Justice Department is unafraid to weigh into these politically fraught cases and take these kinds of actions, Tom.
Okay, so I thought that was very interesting. So Eric Adams, hey, he had a little brown stuff on his nose. He sided with Trump on a few things related to immigration. And magically, when there's a new acting U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, orders come down to dismiss it. Now, it's not a full-blown dismissal. They actually reserve the right to bring these charges again, to file a new indictment paperwork against Eric Adams. I think that's a common practice when they take a dismissal. They call it a dismissal like the interest of justice. In the interest of justice, we're going to dismiss this. But this is interesting because he did a little bit of kissing up. He agreed to some things. He was able to walk away unscathed from federal charges for the time being. Now, typically, federal crimes has a 5-year statute of limitations, so they could circle back around, or presumably when Trump's presidential term is up, some new U.S. attorney can say, nah, we still got time. We about to indict you. But for the time being, he is in the clear. So it may not necessarily have been a pardon that Tiffany Henyard was looking for, but she could have potentially been looking for a little bit of favoritism, a little bit of goodwill, a good favor by glazing up President Trump, hoping that when a new U.S. attorney is assigned to the Southern District of Illinois, that they are inclined not to proceed. Typically, when you have a federal investigation, just because you have a federal law enforcement agency conducting an investigation into Tiffany Henyard and the FBI, whoever, FBI, DEA, HHS, any law enforcement agency can do an investigation. But once that investigation is done, they're going to have an investigative report. One of the attorneys at the FBI is going to draft what's called a prosecution memo. They're going to submit that investigative report and the prosecution memo to, I don't know, probably the chief of fraud and public corruption in the Southern District of Illinois. They'll review it. If there's enough evidence there, they'll say, hey, we're going to take this case and we're going to indict it. So if the Southern District of New York, the Southern District of Illinois, the new U.S. attorney isn't inclined to take that case, nothing will ever come from it. Now, I feel relatively confident. The mayor of New York and the mayor of Dalton, apples and oranges, 2 different levels, 2 different things. I don't think that Tiffany Henyard has the ability to scratch President Trump's back to the point where he would be willing to, I guess, exercise some type of influence over the possibility of her being indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Illinois. But I thought it was interesting because we knew she was brown-nosing Trump for a reason. We all thought it was a pardon, but it could come in a different way where the U.S. Attorney's Office, who is going to be a Trump appointee, whoever it is who takes their seat, could just decline to prosecute. Again, that doesn't mean that they can't ever bring the charges, but we're just declining to prosecute in the interest of justice. I don't think that she has that pull. Honestly, I would probably do the opposite. I think that if a new U.S. attorneys get appointed, they're probably going to evaluate all the cases, prioritize the cases, and then once those cases are prioritized, prosecute them accordingly. And I've seen U.S. attorneys' offices pull resources away from other viable cases to go after public corruption of elected officials. So I don't think it's going to work out in her favor, but I thought it was an interesting story to look at to see how, hey, if you glaze President Trump up right, it could work out for you as it did Eric Adams in this case. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So she was served papers. They probably issuing a new subpoena for other records. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm gonna have to go check that out. All right, now this second story is, and I didn't want to pull the video up because the video is all over the place. But I don't know. Did you all see the Tiffany Henyard interview with her and her attorney? We did a video before if her attorney uh, committed some type of violation of an ethics rule by throwing out the story that someone had a knife. I think we all came to consensus that the answer is yes, he's probably capping. But this video was interesting, and y'all let me know what y'all think. Essentially, it was a hit piece. I don't know if you're familiar with what a hit piece is, but a hit piece is, you know what? We have someone who is a political opponent. We want to put something out in the media to kind of highlight all the bad things that are going on. Those bad things may or may not have a nexus directly to what the politics of the issue are. But if we hold this person in a bad light, it could carry some favor with voters potentially. Now, I think one thing that was wrong, it's too late in the game. 13 days away from election is the wrong time to be doing a hit piece on anyone. I mean, I just think it is what it is. It's the wrong time to be doing a hit piece on anyone because it's just not enough time. There are some people who probably heard that interview and was shocked and was like, I can't believe it. There was a knife. And the attorney said it was a knife because there were people at Lori Lightfoot's last presentation who said it was the first time that they were hearing all of this information about Tiffany Henyard and her spending for the village of Dalton. So I'm sure somewhere, somehow, there's a small population of people who have who, when they heard Tiffany Henyard's interview with her attorney, they probably took it as fact. I think it's a very small percentage of people, but there are some people out there. But there's a few points that I want to talk about with regard to that interview that was crazy. One, the attorney just really lying, trying to corroborate and reaffirm the story that Tiffany Henyard saying that there was a knife there. No one had a knife. It was clearly a microphone. There's multiple video angles that show that Jed over at Investigate and Advocate actually walked past as he was approaching where the melee occurred and grabbed the microphone. Then there's a point where you can see him actually just literally like holding a microphone. I've seen a lot of knives in my day. I've seen a knife that looked like a comb. I've seen a knife that looked like a pistol. I've seen a lot of knives in my day, but I've never seen a knife that looks like a microphone. So a big fail for the attorney for corroborating that story. That's point number one. Point number two, I think her hit piece to those who are uninformed could be mildly effective. The biggest problem is that when someone consistently tell lies, when they tell something with a hint of truth in it, no one tends to believe them because of the consistent pattern of lies. But to someone who is uninformed, I think the hit piece could be effective to a small amount of people. Let's see. Yeah, and that's why I didn't want to use the video because they had a lot of background music in it, and music does elicit various emotions from people. But it was just too much to use that and have to edit out all the music and everything. Let's see. A political opponent. Well, I guess it depends on how you define it. But if someone is not, I mean, for me, a political opponent could be someone I'm running against or someone who has a voice within the community and has the potential to influence a pool of voters. They aren't. I mean, I don't know. It's they. He doesn't. I look at it as you don't want me to win the election. Like that would be the. I mean, I don't know. I think that I would consider him a political opponent. If I'm running for office, everybody who every second they get, they talking about how much I suck ass. You are a political opponent to me because you are trying to threaten my man. I see your point in the definition, but I put all of them in the ops category. If I'm running against you, you're an op. If you an advocating against my interests, you're all going in the opposition category. But I see your point. I see your point. That's a good point though. So I see where you're going with that one. But it's interesting because some of this stuff I didn't know. Like, I'm gonna just keep it a buck with y'all. Going to someone's house, we see people do it at the federal level. It doesn't happen that often. But going to someone's house, going to someone's mother's house is generally is crazy work. I would never advise anybody to do that. Keep your advocacy in the arena of where politics should go down generally. So going to someone's house, going to someone's parents' house is probably a little bit wild. But the way that they edited the video for someone who's uninformed, like that, I'm gonna just be honest, it's too much. I think you when you start going to somebody come to my house, somebody come to my parents' house over something that's work related. You getting right up there. I don't know if it's necessarily meeting the threshold for stalking, but harassing, maybe. I don't know. Y'all let me know what other attorneys are saying, but that's kind of crazy work, in my opinion, going that far. The other thing that I thought was interesting, it was twofold. One, I felt like I don't know if you all let me know if this y'all thought this was the case, but I felt like she tried to make a connection based on how that interview was set up between Jedediah and the individual. Oh man, I forget his name. Who threw the first punch? Who used to work with Tiffany Henyard? Who had the crazy ass criminal background and did 24 years. The way that was narrated and presented, even though it was some cap in there, we're going to talk about that. I think that it was strategically done in a way to align that individual with Jed. And I'm just going to be honest. If I don't know, how could I say this? And we'll talk about the cap because she tried to say something to the effect of we fired him because we were unaware of his criminal past, but that's cap because there's interviews out there when she actually hired this gentleman where she said everyone deserves a second chance. So again, more lies, making the things that have some remnants of truth to them look ridiculous. But I think that she tried to put this person with this. Anybody hear that guy's criminal record and history? I don't know about you all, but you're gonna. For me, I'm gonna hear that, and I get it. People could change, but I don't know. As soon as I hear some shit with kids, I'm like, nah, bruh, that ain't it. And I thought the way the story was edited, the way it was put together, and even in the chat when we did videos about the fight, everybody was like, "Oh, that's Jed's guy, that's Jed's boy." When you put person A and you align them with person B, and person B has a past that's so sketchy and fucked up, people don't like that shit. I'm not saying uninformed people. Uninformed people will hear that and be like, "Wait, why is this his man?" Like, what's the Kendrick Lamar line to Drake? "Oh boy, got a weird case. Why is he around?" Why are you hanging around somebody with a weird case? It's kind of how people are going to look at it. I appreciate you for dropping it. I couldn't remember. Yeah, Lavelle. I couldn't remember his name. But again, she did lie about the reason for his termination. She was clearly aware of his background because she said in a news story that everyone deserves a second chance. But I don't know. That presentation was one, it was a hit piece done way too late. Had to be done, I mean, probably, I would say probably 4 to 6 months in advance. Two, I think that showing up to someone's house and someone's parents' house is wild. I think that's crazy work. I think that in most places, most judges will find that sufficient to be harassing, or they'll at least entertain some type of harassment or something to that effect. Even though we know a restraining order was filed, protective order was filed, but just because it's filed doesn't mean it was granted. We all get that. We talked about the protective order and everything, but a lot of untruths, no knife, lying about this guy's background. Um, but overall, I don't think it's going to be effective. The people who that hit piece would be effective to is a very, 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 very small population of the voting demographic who's going to be voting in the election for the village of Dalton. But I don't know. I thought it was well put together, even though there's a bunch of lies in there. Well, several lies in there. I gonna say a bunch, but even though there was a multitude of lies in there, untruths, I think that it was put together very well. I think that the use of music to invoke certain emotions was well put together. Um, I just don't think it's going to be effective because it's too late in the game, and most of the voters are savvy enough to know what's going on. Most of the voters, I mean, we gotta give respect to the voters. Voters aren't dumb. These people live here. They've been living there for years. They aren't stupid. They know what it is. So a very small percentage of population may have been enticed by that. But overall, I don't think it was effective. Let me see. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, we did a video on that, Lady Luck. We already did a video on that. Soon, the very first time he said he had a knife, and we went straight to the ethics rules. Was like, what is an attorney's obligation to tell the truth? So I think we all came to the conclusion that this dude was violating some attorney ethics laws by the Illinois bar. We looked at the ABA model rules, but the Illinois rule normally every state normally models their rules after the American Bar Association rule. Mm. Eh, what was the? I don't know. We could. I'm not saying like there's certain situations where protesters will gather outside of a politician's house. I think that's fair. I don't know. Showing up with a bullhorn, was he by himself? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know the nature of it. It looked like from the video he shows up isolated by himself. I don't know the facts around why he visited her mother's house. She could have been staying at her mother's house, which could change the facts and how some people view it. I think you're walking a very, and I said this on the channel. I think generally he's on the right side of most arguments, but you have to, there's a thin line between zealous advocacy and going a little bit too far where people will mistake your zealousness for overreach. And it's just a line that you have to be able to balance. Let's see. It was Tiffany's listed address, and Jed and others were okay. So it was more than one person out there. Changes it as well. And I do remember that's why I said was she living at her mother's address because I remember hearing something that she may have been staying at her mother's house. So all of these things are generally factors that's going to be considered, but I don't know. And in light of I think it would be foolish for a judge not to entertain hearing something like that, or for investigative body not to entertain looking into seeing if something rises to the level of what would be harassment. That's just me. Even though I think it was a lot of cap in that story that she did, I think that some things were arguable points where is he going overboard? It's arguable. Some people may say yes, some people may say no. Let's see. I don't know, man. Hey, shout out to the Republican governors who started busting illegals off out of their states. I actually think that was tactically a smart move because everyone wants to be a sanctuary city when you don't have to deal with the magnitude of the problem that someone else will. So, hey, I'm not saying I agree with all these Republican governors, but I did think that that was a smart move. Okay, now remember, okay, let's talk about this real quick, sis. Let's talk about this. Now, I remember that he had this situation. It was a personal crisis. Is it harassment? Hmm. I don't know. Let me see. Let me look something up. Let me look something up. Because one thing is out in the public forum. Like you can unilaterally go on YouTube and YouTube that. Pulling something up that's in the public forum. Is that harassment? It depends on how you use it, but let's Let's see. Let's see how they define it. Mm, they had a really broad definition in Illinois. What constitutes harassment? I ain't gonna pull it up. I just read it to y'all. Let me close that. It says in Illinois, harassment is defined in the Illinois compiled statute under 720 ILCS 5/26-.5-3. I hate the way they write their statutes. It is described as knowing conduct that is unnecessary for a reasonable person under the circumstances and that would cause an unreasonable person emotional distress. This broad definition allows various behaviors to be considered harassment if they cause emotional distress without a legitimate purpose. The statute categorizes harassment into specific actions such as repeated phone calls, threatening messages, or following someone in a manner that causes fear or anxiety. Importantly, the victim does not need to have suffered actual harm. The potential for emotional distress is sufficient. The law emphasizes the victim's perception and the reasonableness of their distress rather than the intent of the accused. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because when they're looking at harassment, they're not looking at what your intent is, the intent of the person who's being accused. They're looking at how it was perceived. That's actually a really big deal. Illinois law also considers the context of the alleged harassment. For instance, workplace harassment may be evaluated differently than harassment in a personal relationship. The law takes into account power dynamics and the environment, allowing for a comprehensive assessment of each case to ensure fair application. I mean, with that broad definition, I can see both sides of it. I can see how you can. I see your point with the video could be because that's a broad definition, and I can see how some of the conduct, comments, videos that Jed has made about Tiffany Henyard could be perceived as harassment because they have that really, really broad definition. God damn, she dated that guy also. Hey, shout out to. Let's see. Yeah. We checked that out. Super stupid went to jail herself. Let's see. He was a kid when he was 14 and 15. Not saying it was right. I mean, I get it. Kids do crazy stuff. Trust me, I represented some kids who did some crazy shit, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that shit. Like it's certain type of things. Like I actually got to a point where I wouldn't even represent motherfuckers like that. I used to be like, nah, y'all get that case to somebody else, man. I'm not doing that shit. I don't even care. I don't even want to hear what the facts is. I know how I work. The way my mind work. You being accused of that shit, I just couldn't do it. So I was like, after about a year or two, I was like, I'm not doing that shit anymore. Get that shit to one of the new guys. I don't disagree. I agree with you, Lady Luck. It was pretty terrible. Let's see. Let's see. Damn, that's crazy. Okay. I mean, like I said, the context of it, that's why I asked when he was at mom's house, was it with by himself, with other people? Was she living there? Because there were stories about her living with her mother. As quiet as it kept, I'm just gonna be honest with that broad definition of harassment that Illinois has it. I mean, it's a very broad definition. I think you can realistically, I think you can have a viable case. I'm just saying, but you can have a viable case just from pulling content off of his YouTube channel in conjunction with all the other things. Because the biggest point of that whole statute is it's not about the intent of the accused, it's about how it's perceived by the victim. I mean, that's a really big deal. Let me see. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get what you're saying. She lived there. The definition is broad. That's all I'm saying. I can go to his channel right now, and if somebody wanted to, you could go to his channel and go through all his content and probably piece up about 2 hours worth of continuous shit talking, using vulgar language, all of these things. Regardless of which I say, it's not about what his intent was. I didn't make up the law in Illinois. I didn't make up the law. They're less concerned with the intent of the accuser. They're more concerned with the how it was perceived by the victim. And that cuts both ways. It would cut the same way if we were looking at the scenario where she utilized the footage of Jed's incident from 8 years down the road. They're not going to look at what her intent was. They would look at how it was impacted and how it affected Jed. Same way. The law is a sword that cut both ways. It ain't gonna cut just one way for one person. Like that would be like saying, "Oh man, he can get her for harassment for using that video." Well, she could potentially have a claim for harassment against him too, under certain circumstances. It's a really broad definition. I read y'all the law. Hey, don't get mad at me. I didn't write it. Okay, I didn't write it. I don't know. Like I wondered that would Jed be inclined to file a lawsuit from that? I mean, I don't know. With 13 days left, what'll be the point? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't see what the point was. Lord have mercy. Y'all said she was in the. Yeah, wow. I appreciate it. Correct me where I'm wrong. I got it. Her house, her mother lived there with her at her residence. Y'all missing the entire point. The entire point that I'm trying to make is no one cares about what his intent was when he went there. I didn't make the law. The statute says that. They're going to look at how it was perceived by the victim. The victim in that case would be Tiffany Henyard. The same way if Jed went and said, "I'm filing harassment charges because she brought up a video of me in my weakest moment when I was in a police car, emotionally distressed, and now I'm reliving that event and I got to go see my therapist." If he bring that reaction claim, her argument is going to be, "I was just bringing up a video that was on open source. Everybody could Google it and see it." And they law going to say the exact same thing they would say in his story. We don't care about what your intent was. We're worried about how it was perceived. He perceived it and received emotional distress from how you used it. So if you don't think that there's an argument for harassment on her side, there's no argument for harassment on Jed's side for her using that video. That's the logic that would be have to be had. You can't have it one way. Harassment works perfectly on his side, but on her side, nah. When they don't care about what the intent of the accused was, but just how the victim took it. Come on now. I mean, I'm just saying. Let's see. And I get it. I said the other thing we said beforehand is the video was clearly edited by like somebody on what is it, Fiverr? Like somebody on Fiverr edited. It was clearly edited so you don't get the full context of what was happening. What was happening. I get that. It's going to be impactful to a very small segment of the population. I didn't think that Lori Lightfoot's final report would influence anybody until I saw the news and some guy was like, "I didn't know any of this was going on." And I was like, "Bro, where you been?" Once I saw that guy, I said, "There's some people who live there who have no clue about what's going on. They just out of sight, out of mind. They just don't watch the news. They don't want to hear about it. They aren't in this space." So a very small segment of the voting populace is probably going to watch this and be like, "Oh man, wow, I had no clue that this was going on." It's an edited video. I mean, you have very limited context. I don't know. You have very limited context when it's an edited video. Let's see. Nah. I just watched it and was like, it was too much. I seen too many videos out there. I didn't want to pull up another video. It was annoying. But hey, there were other people with him. Child. Okay. Hey, and I appreciate y'all for giving me all the facts. I'm just looking at the video, reacting to it. Like I had no clue about all the house stuff and anything until I saw that video myself. So I appreciate it. But on the harassment side of the game, the way that law is written, it could cut both of them both ways. I could see each side arguing a case that has some viability because it's weird that it's written that way. Well, it's not weird, but I mean, yeah. Let me see. Yeah, the law emphasizes the victim's perception and the reasonableness of their distress rather than the intent of the accused. I mean, that's the most important part of the statute. How the victim perceived it and the reasonableness of it is going to outweigh the intent of the accused. And I think that's the. I mean, let's just be honest. I think that's the right way to do it. If somebody was showing up at your child's locker every day, talking shit about them, and they were like, "Oh man, I didn't intend to harass them. I was just fucking with them. I thought it was funny." No, you're not gonna give a damn about what their intent was when they showed up to your child's locker every day talking shit about them. No, you're gonna care about how your child perceived it and was that perception reasonable. So I think the law is written the right way. It's very broad, but being that broad, I think it has applicability that could apply to both sides. Okay, she went from her mother's house to a rental house to a car wash. Yeah. He was granted a restraining order against her. I believe that's accurate, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Let me see. They have a court hearing tomorrow. It was continued because she didn't show up after the brawl. Attorney asked for an extension, and this is for. Lord have mercy. All right, let me straighten up. Let me straighten up. All right. Let me see. Yeah, she capped about things in there. It was chopped up. It was a hit piece. That's the whole point of a hit piece. I mean, a hit piece isn't designed to be accurate. It isn't designed to be accurate. Let's see. I thought that was smart. Dropping the illegals off at the vice president house is crazy. If Kamala can get illegals, Tiffany can get a lawful protest. That's fair. That's fair. I like that. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, cyberbullying is a thing, and I think it would also fall. They probably have a specific statute carved out for cyberbullying since it's 2025. But even if they didn't, I think it would fall squarely within that harassment statute. Let's see. Shout out to lunchtime in Japan. Yeah, I agree. I think he does have a valid harassment claim because they care about how it impacted him and not what her intent was. Let's see. Lavelle was clapping those cheeks. I went this whole show and didn't say anything about anybody clapping cheeks. All right, real quick. What's going on? I appreciate you tuning in, Foxy 2, Roxy 3. Real quick, I saw a video on Hannibal is Hungry where he talked about a FOIA request. And I thought it was interesting because I was like, oh, this is interesting. Um, I know something about FOIA. A person can show up at someone's house. You can There have been protests at Supreme Court justices' house when they overturned Roe v. Wade. You can't look at one incident in isolation. If I'm going to the court to present a harassment argument, I'm gonna take everything I got and piece it all up together. I'm gonna go to in theory, let's say, okay, let's flip it around. If I'm Jed and I'm saying, hey, Tiffany Henyard is harassing me, this is how she's doing it. My damages from it, I'm going through emotional distress. I got in a physical altercation because of it. She brought up a video of me in a weak emotional state. Now I'm reliving that moment and I got to go speak to my therapist and all of this stuff. They're not going to go to the courthouse and say, okay, You got a harassment claim. What's your piece of evidence? Okay, they did a protest at the house. Okay, all right, that's it. We're just gonna go with the protest. They're gonna say, okay, Your Honor, he showed up at a protest to my house over this particular incident. This house, this is where my mother stays, who's an elderly person. In addition to that, I have 3 hours worth of YouTube video where he's talking about how terrible I am, which may or may not be true, but he's making things that remember, they care about the perception of the victim, not the intent of the alleged harasser. I perceived all of these 2 hours worth of footage on his YouTube channel as threat. He's a guy. He's substantially bigger than me. He shows up to these buildings. He don't leave, even though law enforcement came. They're going to present all the evidence. When I say they have a viable case means it's a case that a judge could potentially look at and see and say, this may be going a tad too far. They're going to look at everything. I don't know. I'm interested. I need to go see what did Nate the lawyer do a video on this? If he didn't, I know he will. I'm gonna go over there and check out his video. I'm gonna be interested to see what he says on it to make sure I'm not tripping. But I think it cuts both ways. It don't make a difference if you don't like the person or not. I didn't make the law. I think that he has a viable claim of harassment. She would probably have a viable claim of harassment. It is what it is. Let's see. All right, real quick, I want to touch bases on this video real quick. Let me go ahead and pull it up. It's about a FOIA request that was done by Hannibal is Hungry. Now, we're going to skip that.
President Trump's crackdowns on illegal.
This is interesting, too. Shout out to Eric Adams. He glazed up President Trump, and it looked like he's probably not going to get any smoke from the DOJ suing all the sanctuary cities as well. I just didn't want to go through that video. So, hey, if you could curry some favor from the right person,
receipts.
It could be helpful. All right, real quick. Shout out to Hannibal is Hungry, great content creator. This guy, he goes above and beyond. Somebody sent me this and said, yo, this dude did a FOIA request, and he's talking about how his request was denied. So I wanted to just talk about this real quick. Let me see if I can pull up, because I know we went over it. We looked at it from a federal standpoint. I guarantee you it's the same shit. Let's see. Endangerment, trade secrets, unduly burdensome, proposals and bids, preliminary draft. Yeah, exact same thing. Yeah, so we were right to do it that way. Okay, so let's pull this video up real quick of his FOIA request. What happened to it? Did they just screw him over and say we aren't doing it, or did they have a legitimate reason for not providing it? I thought this was interesting.
I hope I put the password in. Let me see.
Now, I didn't go through all of this. I just went to maybe the first 4 minutes of his discussion about his FOIA request. And I'm not doing a FOIA request to get anything. So shout out to him.
Okay, so my FOIA request was denied. They say as police officers from South Holland Police Department did not arrive on the scene until the incident was over and alleged victims and offenders were already left the scene. This is not a denial. I felt.
Yeah, I don't think that's a denial. So typically, a request comes in. Just so y'all know the process, I had a flow chart, but that's a work product. I can't use that I created. A request comes in from some citizen, some media outlet. It goes to intake. The intake guys are going to read the FOIA request, and the FOIA request has to be perfected. What does a perfected FOIA request mean? Long story short, I should be able to read the request once and know what the hell record it is that you're looking for. So if you send me a FOIA request saying, I want any and all communications between law enforcement with the Village of Dalton Police Department and person A. that's not a perfected request because case law says that if you're looking for email communication, you have to be able to identify the parties. You can't require a government entity. A FOIA request means that the government entity, they don't have to answer questions. It's just for production of records. So if you asking for questions to get answered, you're not going to get anything. If it's unduly burdensome, the example I gave with the email address, if you don't provide a specific person to look at for that subject matter, it's going to be unduly burdensome because you're asking me to look through all of the police officers' email address for communications with one person. No, that's too much. But FOIA requests come in, it goes to intake. Intake is going to determine if it's perfected or not. If it's perfected, that means we read it, we know what you're looking for, we know the event, date, circumstances around the records you're looking for. Then it'll go to somebody, then a search will be done. Then after the search is done, then they'll do all the appropriate reactions. So this doesn't sound like a denial to me. It sounds like they call it a not reasonably described. You're asking for records, and it sounded like, let me see, it sounded like he said he asked for records when the incident occurred, and they said our officers didn't get to the scene until after. So it sounded like they just gave him a not reasonably described response in this aspect.
My FOIA request was denied. They say, as police officers from South Holland Police Department did not arrive on the scene until the incident was over and alleged victims and offenders were already left the scene. This is not a denial. I felt that there were cops there and people were.
All right. And so here, there were cops there, but it depends on what jurisdiction those police officers were with. I mean, that would be the first point.
Talking to them. So I'm going to have to figure out what is going on with this situation. Because I could recall that the cops were there minutes after the situation. Anyone who remember when the fight happened, the cops did show up. And I know that at least one of the cops did talk to Jed. So all of a sudden, they're not allowed to present that body cam. So I'm going to go and put another request in because I think they're trying to avoid something. So I'm going to have to go ahead and check that out. But on that note, guys, we will continue to check this story, obviously. And yeah, there were cops. There were cops. And I remember them walking in. They had to have had their body cam footage. Maybe I will see. Maybe I have to reword it. Like, what happened when they arrived at the scene? You telling me the mayor just jumped in the car and drove away? She didn't stick around? Like everyone, so no one talked to the cops? So it doesn't make, the cops were already, so something's telling me that they are trying to do something. Because
do y'all know the cops that were there from what jurisdiction, what municipality was there doing the security? What police department was there?
It happened in South Holland, right? So I'm about to ask more questions and see who else I should be trying to contact and submit a FOIA that way. Because I'm wondering, was it South Holland Police? Now you're saying, I know some Mike, you're saying Lansing Police. So police was there. I just got to get the correct. I'm gonna have to get the correct agency to submit the FOIA because I went with South Holland, and this is what happened. I submitted days ago, like probably the 1st of February. I submitted the FOIA request for the body cam footage of the situation that happened in Township, and I went to South Holland and I emailed, and they didn't respond to me until probably almost 10 days later.
That's actually not bad.
Provide a 5-day extension. Then today, which is the 5-day extension would mean the 15th. Then the next day, because I think this extension happened yesterday or the day before. Then it's we were unable to complete your request as police officers from the South Holland Police Department did not arrive. So if that was true from the beginning, why would they give me the extension? Why they couldn't just answer that immediately? So there's something's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that shit go through like 65. I ain't gonna say 65 people, but it's so many people involved in processing that. But typically, the same things we talked about on the federal side would be reasons for denial. That didn't sound like a denial. It sounded like they call it a not reasonably described request. Like, okay, you didn't reasonably describe what it is that you're looking for. So, under his scenario, if he's requesting body cam footage and he says South Holland and they're saying our officers arrived after the scene, what they should, what his request should say is, I want any and all body camera footage for, preferably you would want the law enforcement officer's name. But if you don't have the law enforcement name, from law enforcement officers associated with South Holland that were in that responded to this particular incident on or about this date, and put a time frame. You know how long the event was, you know what time the event was, about the time and stuff. Put a specific time frame in there so you don't give them any wiggle room. If you put the time frame in there, they would probably be inclined to give you the footage. It depends. They could find a few other ways. There's an easy way they could really finesse their way out of giving nobody nothing. But I'm not gonna say that. But I'll explain it. I'll explain what the rules are in Illinois, and then y'all will figure out what they could do if they really didn't want to give anybody anything. I don't want to help out too many people. But once you explain it that way with that time frame there, then it'll open the door for you to get records from all the footage during that time frame of the officers who reported to that specific incident. So you just got to write it very detailed. Now, we talked about it federally. In Illinois, these are the reasons that they don't have to disclose uh, information requested for a FOIA. Private information, that's for PII. So if they were to give up the body cam footage, they would probably redact the identifying name of the officer. More likely than that, they should actually redact the facial images of the persons who were caught on the footage, because that's a person's personal identifiable information. Um, Anything that can cause a public safety concern, business trade secrets, proposal and bids, that's all contract stuff. Preliminary draft, that's deliberative material, that's material written for a government agency to help them make a decision on how they're doing something. The public safety concern is something that we could release this and it could essentially cause someone to get harmed or create a harmful situation. The biggest one is the law enforcement records, because there are A, B, C, D, E, F, 5, 6, maybe 7 categories within law enforcement records. If it's an active investigation, you aren't getting it. I don't care how well written your FOIA requests are. If it's information related to a confidential source, you aren't getting it. If it's information that discloses a law enforcement technique, you aren't getting it. If it is information, let's see, law enforcement technique, confidential source, I, personal identifiable information related to persons participating in the investigation, could cause death or put someone's life in risk. That's kind of like the endangerment public safety issue. But the law enforcement exemption has about 6 or 7 categories that it could fall under. I think they really don't have a reason not to provide any records, because from my understanding, there's no active investigation. So if there's no investigation, they would redact all the personal identifiable information contained in the body cam footage. It's not business records. It's not trade secrets. It's not unduly burdensome. They're just asking for one video footage of body worn camera. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't get it. I think the biggest thing is you have to make sure you're identifying the right law enforcement agency who maintains the records. And normally what you do is you'll send it to like all of the law enforcement agencies involved. Normally you'll see, hey, I was arrested by a federal task force. I'm requesting records, and they'll send the same request to FBI, DEA, HHS, whoever was involved in that task force, whoever could have been there, they'll send the same request to all of those departments. And then some departments will come back, no records found, we weren't there. But at least that way, you know that if you cast that wide net, you'll find the records that you want from whatever the law enforcement agency that was there was. That's essentially how that'll work. But I thought that that was interesting. These FOIA requests, they seem kind of simple, but they can get kind of complicated. Let me see real quick. I want to just go through these kind of. I don't know. It was clearly a law enforcement there at the time that everything was happening. I don't know what municipality that law enforcement officer represented who was there. They got the channel. They got the same letter I did a FOIA as well from South Holland, but I'm resubmitted it for camera footage from the inside of the building and the cop that didn't do the report. Camera footage on the inside of the building. That's smart. That's probably actually the best way to go. But if there's no active investigation, there's no way. If you identify the right law enforcement municipality, they don't have any reason to be able to deny you that FOIA request. It depends. And I say it depends because I literally wrote a body worn camera policy this year. So literally, well, not this year, but late last year. It depends because it depends how that law enforcement agency's policy is written. Because most law enforcement officers, they turn on their body cam footage. Their body camera is activated once they are about to engage in a law enforcement activity. So as they're just driving around in the car, they don't have their body worn camera footage. But once they hit the lights and they're about to pull somebody over, they cut on their body worn camera footage. Or if law enforcement is on a task force with federal and local authorities and they're about to serve a high risk warrant, they're going to cut it on. So generally, it's not on just for shits and giggles. Excuse me. Normally, it's not on for shits and giggles. It's on where they're engaged in law enforcement duties and they know that they are about to have an interaction. So it is possible for a law enforcement officer to be at a location, i.e., hey, I'm here, and it's just an open forum for people to talk to the city council. In that instance, he's not just going to have his body worn camera footage on, because that's an instance where he's thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to need it on in this particular moment. So it wouldn't be unplausible for an officer to be at the location, but there to not be body worn camera footage, because 1, 2, 3. I've participated in creating 3 body worn camera policies for federal, local, state agencies, and never did I see one that said, hey, your body worn camera footage, it just runs all the time whenever you're in uniform. It's normally like, okay, I'm about to light it up. Once you turn on the lights, you got to cut it on. We're serving this high risk warrant. It's situations where you can anticipate. Or if I'm in a car and I get a call, like, okay, I'm driving around and I get a call. Hey, you got a 211 in progress. Oh, there's an armed robbery in progress. I click on my body worn camera footage. So it's not just on all the time. So that is a good question. An officer can be in uniform on private duty, so to speak, and they could not have their body camera activated. I've never written a policy or seen a policy that said, hey, you should just have it on all the time, 24/7. So it could be a situation where I'm at a place where I don't anticipate to be with the shits. I don't anticipate shit to go left, and it go left, and I got to react, and I didn't have a chance to cut it on. That could happen. That's a good question. That's a good question. Ah, Yeah, if he's a security guard, you ain't gonna get anything. If he's a security guard, you wouldn't get anything. Well, it depends. That could be complicated. It depends. One, security guards generally don't have body worn camera footage. If they do have body worn camera footage, it's a record maintained by the security guard company and not the actual government. So you can't do a FOIA request for a private company. The only way, if it was a third party security guard, the only way you could get access, let's say third party security guard is there and he does have body worn camera footage. The only way you could get access to that body worn camera footage is if local law enforcement provided him that body worn camera footage for this specific event. Because and that does happen. Let's say DEA, FBI is working with local police department in North Carolina and I don't know, Raleigh, local police department in Raleigh, North Carolina. When they're on that task force doing law enforcement operations, that local police officers in most instances is going to be supplied with supplies from one of those federal agencies. So the federal agencies actually maintain the record. That body worn camera footage is the record of the federal agency. So the proper place to FOIA would be the federal agency, not the Raleigh Police Department. So if it's a situation where it's a security guard there, I seriously doubt he has a body worn camera on. But if he does, the only way you can get it is if he was provided that by the South Holland or some government police department entity. Then that police department would be the custodian of record, and the record being that body worn camera footage. Let's see. They lied about the officers not being there until both parties left. They showed up about 2 minutes after Jed was carried out. And that's going to be the hard thing too. Generally you expect people to do. I don't know what the mechanism is. I don't know what the mechanism is for somebody to appeal or challenge a FOIA in Illinois. I don't know. Maybe y'all can let me know. I don't know what it is. Because normally, if you're in the federal government and you did a FOIA request for body camera footage and it's no law enforcement investigation, right? But let's say I denied it. Let's say, no, I'm not giving it to you for this reason. If I deny your request, you should have a right to an administrative appeal. And when you file that administrative appeal, it goes to a separate entity, and that entity reaches out to me. So their attorneys would contact me, and they are checking to make sure I'm doing everything on the up and up. So there should be a mechanism in place where they shouldn't be able to just say, let's just put anything on the paper and you aren't getting the body worn camera footage. That shouldn't be the case. Because normally if you file a FOIA request, it's denied, they'll give you paperwork. That paperwork will say, you have the right to appeal this within a certain amount of days. When you file that appeal, there should be a separate organization there that would reach out to the South Holland Police Department and talk to their FOIA section and say, hey, you all denied this request. Let's talk about it. And they're going to make sure that South Holland Police Department did everything on the up and up. And they would be fucked. It would be, pardon my language, they would be screwed if they withheld footage and they didn't withhold it for a viable reason, because that third party would be entitled to it. We would have to say, hey, we didn't give it to them because these exemptions applied and we didn't have to give it to them. And then we would actually have to give them a copy of the body worn camera footage, and they would look and be like, okay, yeah, you're right. This, even though this is body worn camera footage, it does disclose a sensitive law enforcement technique. And because of that, they're exempt from being able to provide it. But there's normally some administrative third party there that will make sure the state or government entity isn't just lying to you saying we don't have it or we can't give it to you. I'm not sure what that is, but it should be something like that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But she already went in front of the judge after he went to her house, correct? She was denied a protective order. I would assume if Jed done anything, she would have gotten an order. That's a fair assumption. They were armed security, yeah. So if they were armed security, you're probably not gonna. Wow, what? Walmart receipt checkers out here wear body cam? That's crazy as hell. I don't never stop for those people. I'll be like, man, y'all leave me the hell alone. But yeah, if they were armed security, you're probably not gonna be able to get that footage because you can't do a FOIA request on a non-government entity. So yeah, that'll be a problem unless they were provided it by some government entity, and then you would have to request those records from that government entity. I don't know. I can't tell from that video because I seen some top flight security guards who got like they got like badges and all this shit, and I'd be like, damn, this shit look official. So I don't know. It could be top flight security. It could be a lot of security companies. Excuse me. They have uniforms to make it look like their people are like. Excuse me. Yeah. To make it look like their people are like legit police officers, which is dangerous as fuck to do. So I don't know. Let's see. That's gonna be interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That was big cap. You just can't say anything. I mean, well, in a hit piece, you could just say anything because the whole point is just to kind of get some reaction. But like, I don't know. We all know that. Uh, I don't know. Like, you, it's indicative of what she normally does. Say stuff without any facts or receipts to back it up. I think it's very highly unlikely that these people are paying Jed to harass and stalk her. I just don't think that is. I don't think that that don't even make sense. It don't even sound right. That would be actually ridiculous to have to say happen, and it's just her. Just you know what? I'm gonna say as much bad things as I can. Honestly, you know what? Honestly, like I mean, I get why it's newsworthy, but like at some point, like the legit media outlets who conduct these interviews, like like I don't know, you shouldn't be able to. I just don't understand how. It's one thing when people go on their Facebook page and put out whatever it is, what it is, but I don't know when legit media outlets conduct interviews and don't provide facts that are counter to what's provided on the interview is just a disservice to everybody. Let's see. Top flight security was on the floor. Yeah, but I mean, this you just got to find out what were they law enforcement? If so, what municipality were they associated with? The easiest thing to do is I would just send a request to. I send it to South Holland, Lansing. I send it to whoever the 3 or 4 persons that it could be. Literally, just change up the language, one sentence, one word, 1 or 2 words. Send it to all 4 of them, and then they'll slowly get back to you. No records, no records. Whoever give you a no records request, a no records finding, that's gonna mean that hey, we looked, we didn't have any records because our guys weren't there. If you got the officer's name, that's better, but you don't really need the officer's name if you can show the. I'm gonna read y'all one last thing on FOIA requests so y'all know. Let me see. I'm trying to find it. Hold on, hold on. Let me see. Give me one second. Let's see. Fuck. I can't find it on here. But a FOIA request must describe the records with specificity, identifying records being sought as specifically as possible to include date, time, subject matter, persons who maintain the record, departments who maintain the records, agencies and or organizations who maintained the records. So yeah, if you want those records, it will behoove you to have the name of the officer, the date of the event, the time of the event, what the actual event was, and I would give them a time frame duration. This event started at whatever 7 o'clock, and from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, any officer who reported to or was assigned to serve at this specific location for this whatever village of Dalton, Thornton Township board meeting that occurred on this specific date. That's how detailed it got to be. And then I was sending out to whatever municipalities could have had law enforcement there, and the ones who don't have anything will give you no records found, and the one who has something should probably have to give it to you. If they don't give it to you, and it's a denial, they have to state the reason for the denial. So you'll know why they denied it if it's a denial. We denied it because we denied it for exemption 7A as an active law enforcement investigation. We denied it for exemption B6. It contains personal identifiable information of third parties. They have to state the specific reason. If they give you a denial and state the specific reason, at the end of that denial letter, it should be some language that tell you what your appeal rights are. You can file an appeal of this notice within 30 days to X organization. And when you file that appeal, you'll have an agency who actually has attorneys who are looking at what the law enforcement agency did and the denial to see if the denial was appropriate. And I've been involved in this process, and sometimes you lose. Sometimes the shit we say, like, hey, we denied it for this, this, and this, and they'll look at it and say, well, we agree with you denying pages 3, 7, 19, 21, and 25, but these other pages, you can do a segregation analysis and redact out some information and provide those to the requester. So if there is an appeal right, an administrative appeal right, that's actually a good thing. And not all the time, but it's generally best to exhaust your appeal rights before you actually try to file a lawsuit related to them improperly denying your FOIA request or taking too long to respond to it. Let's see. Since she suffers from narcissism personality disorder, I was hoping they send her a legal note and force her to have. Nah. They're not gonna do that. I do agree though. Like real talk. Somebody could probably file a complaint with the bar association about her attorney. I think is like sufficient facts out there to show, like, yo, Blow, you out here blatantly telling a lie that was told to you by your client, even though you know it to be false because there's video footage to prove that it's false. Now, I don't think anything would happen. They would probably just give him maybe a letter of reprimand. Absolute worst case, maybe a public censure, put his name in the monthly lawyer's book and be like, yo, you fucking up out here, stop lying. I don't think they'll do anything pertinent, but persons file complaints for those reasons all the time. The best person who to do it would probably be Jed, since he's the person they seem to be asserting had the knife. But hey, it is what it is. Yo, that's it for this video. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Y'all take care. Have a good evening. Friday, we are going to dive into an interesting company that has a nexus with Tiffany Henyard. Let me pull it up real quick. I got sitting on this story for like 2 months because it's long. And I probably already know. No, one of the official co-counsels sent me this story maybe about a month ago. What the fuck, for some strange reason. It's like I got net zero. And there's gonna be some hold on, we got one more thing. Let me see if I get out. I didn't. Send me a no, send me a link to that. Let me see. I want to find this story real quick. I'm almost there. God damn it. Oh, all right. Why the hell is it? All right. Let's see. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I have the name of this company real quick before we jump out of here. Report. Damn, why can't I find it? Lord. Fuck it. I can't find it. I can't find it right now. Sorry to keep y'all waiting. But it's an interesting story. Is it? Oh, I can't think of the company's name, but it's an interesting story. We're gonna take a look at a shady construction company that has some ties to Tiffany Henyard that were the subject of the federal subpoena that went out back in the day. And it took me a long time to actually kind of research this. So I knew what the fuck I was talking about. But we probably dive into that probably Saturday because Sunday I'm going to be out. So, y'all have a good one. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Y'all be blessed and be safe. Peace.